Max Estates is your local area expert in North Kent and South London, specialising in residential sales, lettings and block management.
More ambition on that. You have a massive amount of energy. So what is it that drives you and drives that passion to actually like really get things done?
apart from certain drinks. With which I have diet versions. So I've got one next to me now, just in case. Do you know what? I don't know what it is. I literally, when I was buying and selling properties and doing them up, I was in heaven. I loved it. My day job was food. So I'm afraid I launched things like Chicken Tonight into the UK and the Pyramid Tea Bag, as it's now known, for PG Tips. But you know what? There's only so many of those that you can do. But when you come into property, it's different every day.
Oh, yeah.
And although I'm considered an expert, I don't think anybody is really, because there's so much. All I'm ever conscious of is how much I never know.
Yeah.
And so what I've tried to do is surround myself by people like yourself who really know their stuff on specific topics, so that I can advise people accurately and keep up to date, because it's horrendous. So the thing, I just had this mad idea when I was doing my MBA. I'm going to change the way people buy and sell houses, because I want them to enjoy it as much as I do. I have to say, I couldn't have kids, so I do appreciate now that moving with kids is an awful lot more stressful than without them. And I've kind of learned actually moving is stressful. And I think we have to separate two things that often aren't separated. The reason you're moving is you're getting divorced, getting married, somebody's died, you're in debt. Though, you know, they are pretty big life changes that you're having. That's stressful enough. You then go and decide to make this mad decision. You're going to chuck your property on the market, and you have to sell it whether it's good or bad, or rent it whether it's good or bad, and go out there to a market where we haven't got enough homes for everybody at the right price, and somehow keep your fingers crossed that what you fancy is available. And that's mad, really, isn't it? Because at any one time, maybe 5-6% of properties are available, and that's across the country. There might be nothing where you are, certainly not at a price you could afford. So we should separate that out. A lot of the stress from home moving comes from the reason you're moving, not necessarily because of the moving process. And the second thing is, because we're under those stresses, and I'm trying to say this as nicely as possible, but I know this from my own personal experience, we don't always make the best decisions. No. And we don't always trust the process. And we want everything to cost very little because it's so expensive. Whereas actually you have to take a deep breath and say, I've got to pay an agent a decent amount. I've got to pay a legal company a decent amount. Should you be doing DIY removals for 2-bed properties plus? Certainly flats over 1 story, no, in my view, and get them to do all the packing for you. No, don't stint on your move. And I think for me, my passion is, I know you can enjoy moving home. The reason we don't is that we as an industry, and indeed the government to some extent, haven't been good at helping make it a good experience. And unless you know what you're doing, when we did part exchange, we were buying and selling 100 properties a year. And we used to pay for a decent agent. We used to pay for decent legals. We used to pay for a surveyor to go out and check the property. And we were actually doing what we're looking to do now. We're providing ourselves with huge amounts of upfront information before we committed to purchase that property. Because if we didn't sell it out in 3 months, we lost money. That's stressful. So you learn, but you learn how to do it, and you learn what are real problems and what aren't real problems, and ones that can be easily solved. So once you do it lots of times, it's easy. But if you're doing it once every 7, 10, 20 years, and all the rules change, of course. So selling a property today is not, or buying one is not what it was 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago, or even 5 years ago. So we've all just got to get better both consumers, industry and government at buying and selling it. And my passion is I've just decided that I'm going to get that done.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why.
We make it worse in the industry because we actually say that moving house is one of the most stressful things. We need to change that message. So
We
that's
should.
a really, really
The reason
point now.
and it's the reason you move house is why it's stressful.
Yeah.
The moving process, if you do the right thing at the right times, you put the time aside to do it, and you have the right people. So another plea would be, if you're thinking of moving this year, do not plan a holiday. Just don't. Don't go on holiday. Every purchase or sale that I've had has been wrecked by people thinking it was okay to go on holiday. It's not. Don't do it, because everything will kick off while you're on holiday. So don't.
Yeah. Or if you do, make sure that you've got broadband and your mobile phone.
Do you know what? No, don't. I got dragged out of a really nice French restaurant to sort out a problem when we were selling my mum's house. It was my last really nice meal, and I'm cross about that, but it shouldn't have been happening. So I'm being hard. Don't go on holiday is my message.
You heard it from Kate. Don't go on holiday.
Absolutely.
Right, I'm going to change the subject a bit now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about levelling up, and what you feel about the proposed changes that's going to be coming our way through the Renters Reform Bill.
Okay, so it's a difficult one really, because I back any rent rights. I'm all for them. And I really support them. So there's nothing really in the Renters Reform Bill that I object to. It's all been done for the right reasons.
Yeah.
The difficulty we have is that there is too much emphasis on giving tenants rights after they've moved into a property.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for 20 years and it's failed. You know, the market's still being called the Wild West. So why has it failed? It's failed because, particularly this year, we haven't got enough properties to rent to people.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you tell so if I give somebody some rights, if they've got damp and mold in their property, if there's 39 people waiting outside to view that property, and you've got to have a roof over your head by Monday, because that's when you start work, that's when your baby's coming home.
Yeah.
Am I going to worry about a bit of damp and mold? Or am I going to make the best offer I can to secure that property for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, the issue with the way we're dealing with trying to regulate the private rented sector is twofold. One is all the rights that have been given tenants are too late. They're too costly to enforce and they take too long.
Yeah.
So licensing, for example, if you fall foul of that as a landlord, 18 months, 2 years more before something's actually done. Well, that's no good.
And in some cases, it's not being done.
Exactly.
It's just not, because the local authority are so under-resourced that they haven't got anybody to go out and actually check the property.
Yeah. I mean, I live near Nottingham, and when they launched theirs, I think we need 36,000 licensed. And in the first 2 years, they'd done a few hundred.
Yeah.
A few hundred. So it's not working after the event. No. So for me, and I do think for a lot of people in the industry, my view is don't let rogue agents operate.
Yeah.
So let's regulate, let's have ROPA. And the second thing is, don't allow properties to be advertised for rent unless they have a property MOT. And that covers, just like our MOT. It's nothing, and that's nice and easy to explain to everybody. Try to explain to a tenant, oh, you've got to check license. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
What you're talking about. And licensing is complicated, and it's become an admin thing rather than a enforcement. Whereas if I tell people, oh, basically we've got this property MOT, it's exactly the same as you would have on your car, it just means you can live in it and it's safe and it's passed all the tests, then they can very much understand that. We can communicate it easily, and that property shouldn't be advertised unless it's legally and safely let. No. Or unless it's been looked after by a regulated agent who we know understands the 400 rules and regulations to let a property.
Yes.
If people are allowed to set up agencies in their bedrooms, in a garage, and without any qualifications, I'm sorry, but that's unacceptable. It's
I'm
unacceptable.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on all of that. There is so much to learn, and just to actually let it be an unregulated industry is why it has gone so wrong.
Yeah.
And we see it all the time. So it's not that the government's actually listening to us, unfortunately, because
no. Do you know what's weird, Maxine? We have this fantastic open dialogue on the home buying and selling group with the government, with DLUC, the department there for housing. And I think it's because we started the process of changing the home buying and selling how it works at the same time. And they've watched our journey and listened and helped us, and we've done it together. The problem on the PRS is there's so many myths and nonsense that's believed. And the first one is, oh, well, landlords are causing the housing crisis. No, they're not. We'd be in a terrible state without landlords in today. There isn't the understanding that, in my view, landlords are the solution, one of the main solutions to the housing crisis, not the other way around. So what the government's tried to do is said, I know, we'll restrict the number of landlords buying properties. What that means is that tenants will be then, or properties will be freed up for tenants to buy. We'll get one less tenant renting, and then they'll just buy in the sector. They don't understand that 25%, over 1 million people are on benefits, students, people living in HMOs, and they just haven't understood that one rent one, buy one doesn't work. And the result of that is we've got students who can't rent where they're going to be, where they've been given a place. And with the local housing allowance cap, turning around to tenants and saying, by the way, we haven't got a social home for you. We know you're eligible, but now we're going to restrict how much you can spend in the private rented sector. How can you call landlords cruel when that's been imposed on those people? And if there were the 1.5 million, sorry, I'm on my obvious now. If there's 1.5 million households up to eligible for social housing, well, if we gave them all the pressure would come off private tenants, all the pressure would come off first-time buyers and the rest of the market.
But they're not there, are they?
No.
Problem. No. And then, look at all of the cases that we've actually seen. They've been from social housing sector. They haven't been coming from the private rented sector. So, it's actually awful. The Section 24 obviously caused a huge problem with many landlords cashing in, especially when the prices went up and up and up. They're levelling out now, and we're certainly not seeing the amount of sales going through as it was. And those that are there have generally incorporated, or they're there for the long term, and they probably haven't got huge amount of
mortgage debt. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that's the only way they can actually stay in the market, if the truth be known, especially with the interest rates going up and up.
Yeah, especially if you're down south or in London. It's slightly different still our way. It works sort of Nottingham and north, but people don't understand we don't have the capital growth.
No.
So where I was just looking at some properties this year near to me in Newark. They haven't moved for 15 years.
Really?
Nottingham's supposed to be the hotspot over the pandemic. But there's a big difference between flat price growth and house price growth. House price growth is not quite, it's about 2.5 times faster than flat price growth. But in areas like mine, you've got it's the wealthy, those people with the equity that can buy, whereas those areas that are if you're first time buyer but therefore more likely to buy a flat, you are restricted because you by the mortgage rules, which is a good thing. And weirdly, one of the hard things about predicting what will happen in 2023 to the property market is that we've never had such a robust property equity levels and such a low level of putting people into more debt than they should have been. So you'll remember the 100% mortgages plus in the last recession. Well, we've had the opposite. First-time buyers typically have been on repayment mortgages since 2014. So they're paying it down. And the only ones that would suffer really, even if there was a 10% fall this year, well, actually, we can live with that, because the only people that suffer be the people who bought last year. But typically, the people who bought last year bought at 2% mortgage rate.
Yes, yeah, and now they're feeling
Yeah.
it because, unless they do fix, right?
But they will, most will have fixed, you see.
Yeah.
So we do panic a bit about the market, but as I always say to somebody, you're getting on the ladder for the next 60 to 80 years. You know, and there'll be ups and downs throughout that. You've just, as long as you're not forced to sell, it doesn't matter. It's about putting a roof over your head.
Absolutely, it's always for the long haul, isn't it? There isn't a quick buck to be made. It's actually, we need to be in it for the long haul. And I think some of us that have been around for a long time, we've seen the market come and go, but we're still here. And certainly it just goes in trends. So now we've seen it all before.
Yeah. And what I laugh about, people say, Kate, what's your forecast for this year? So I've got 3 forecasts for you. Prices will go up, they'll go down, and they'll stay the same. There we go. And I'm accurate. Totally accurate.
Yeah. So if you could actually suddenly be given a magic wand, what would you say that the property industry is going to do throughout the rest of this year?
Just be honest about what's happening with prices and rents, really. Encourage landlords to stay in as much as you can. We really are running out of properties, and I think most of the things that need to happen are actually the government need to do, this one or whoever's the next one, of course, because we need that. We need ROPA to be able to deliver. You know, we can go so far as an industry, but we need ROPA to be able to deliver a really good home buying and selling service, because we need everybody qualified. And we need everybody working off the same quality platform, if you like. And that doesn't happen because people don't have to be qualified, and that's wrong. So I think we really need to help people understand, look, we might not be selling as many homes this year. We can't rent as many homes this year because they're not coming up for rent. But that, go and talk to agents, because agents will help you understand what's happening in your local market. I report on average house prices every single month. They are utterly useless to landlords, buyers, sellers, and tenants, and also do rents as well. The only person that really knows what, two guys, I suppose, the girls that know what's going on, are your agent and your local surveyors.
Yes.
Because if you jump up to Aberdeen, well, they've had prices falling since 2015. So all this rhetoric around double-digit house price growth, they must be looking at the screens going, well, that's not happening here.
Yeah.
So they've seen 23% falls in prices, 16% falls in houses, 30% falls in flats. So everything this year is around really good communication from an agent to the buyer, seller, landlord and tenant. That you build those relationships at a local level, so that people trust the ones that are telling them the truth and telling them the right things. Because if we can do that, then people can make the right decisions, whatever's going on in their life. And don't panic, because it doesn't matter what's happening to house prices. We will always find a way to move you.
Yes, yeah. And that's really, really good advice. You know, trust your local people, your local market.
It's all about
qualified people, not the people that you're going to get the cheap deal from, but the people that actually know what they're doing and they've got their qualifications to prove it. So that's really, really good advice. I think that you and I will be talking on this ROPA thing for a long, long time. I'm as passionate about ROPA as you. You know, it upsets me when I see agencies come and go, and then hearing all the awful stories. And I hear that as a trainer, you know, the terrible things that people go to an agent and then they lose their money, and it's quite upsetting to hear it. So I think that we've got to keep banging that drum with government and making them listen to it.
And not just government, but the media. So if you look at the travel industry, whenever they talk about working with a travel company, they always talk about ABTA and ATOL.
They do, yes. Yeah.
We don't always talk about Property Mark.
Yeah.
And the other qualified agents that are qualified.
Mm.
And we've got to help the media understand that they need to use those terms to protect people, just like they do in travel.
Yes.
So
yes.
we need that help too, because we'll have to wait for government. But there are things that we can do in between whilst.
Definitely. And we will carry on doing that. So what are your goals for the rest of this year then? What are you going to be up to, Kate?
Well, I'm trying to semi-retire.
I can't believe that.
So I'm trying to do less work. I'm
Yeah.
not doing too badly at it, but I am very lucky because I don't feel most of what I do is work. It's what I do anyway. I love property. I love working with the industry. And I'd say to anybody, if you're not sure, there's a lot of people coming out and needing jobs this year and stuff. If you're not sure about what to do, think of property as a industry to go into. I've never been happier, and I've worked in lots of different industries and I love it. Super people, you know, like yourself, and all these people that I've met are just, they're almost, you know, I consider people a lot as friends, really.
Yes.
Not people I work with.
I love it too. I think that you can't get a better job to work in.
No.
And also, especially if you're nosy, because you get to look around everyone's properties. So it really does suit a very nosy person.
Yeah.
And we're
So
all
absolutely, yes, absolutely. So I think for me, really, my goal this year is to try and it is a bit of a tricky one, that kind of work-life balance, but I've done quite well so far this year. And I've got a camper van, so I'm taking as many trips in
I'm
that.
going to be joining you at some point.
Yes,
with Vanessa.
yes,
So
absolutely.
Yeah,
I
and
found
the dogs.
Yeah, and the dogs. So I'm coming down your way shortly, so you can meet the dogs in the camper van. But I think really the two other things that I want to do is get everybody to break away from the idea that average house price information or rents is useful to them.
Yeah.
That information is going to be as wrong as it can be this year. So what I mentioned earlier, talk to your local agent, talk to your local surveyors if you're thinking about moving in the market and you're not sure from a price or rent perspective whether it's a good idea. So I'm going to bang on a lot about that. And the third thing is we want to implement some of the changes that we've agreed at the home buying and selling group across the industry, which is instruct your legal company day one of marketing, if not before. Get yourself a property pack, get something. We have logbooks now, so very similar to your car logbook. So have a look at those, because that'll make your life easier if you're selling, and certainly if you're buying and your seller's got one. We also want I want everybody moved by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Maxine.
I know. I've heard this lots of times, and I agree. That would be so good if everybody was moved by 1 o'clock. All the keys were in the offices. So you go and collect the key 1 o'clock.
Yeah, and do you know one of the big
Wonderful.
reasons it doesn't happen? We don't talk about it.
No.
Nobody has the conversation. So whether you're a buyer, a seller, you're a landlord, you're a tenant, you're an agent, a lender, legal company, I want everybody to have that conversation. It is possible. It's not always easy.
That sounds like a campaign, the 1 o'clock campaign.
Yes, I'll go for that.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic idea. So, but have the conversation.
Yes.
And then we can start making a real difference and reducing the stress levels during the process, and there's particular stress levels, which is understandable on moving day.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Kate, and may I wish you every success in your continued journey to make the buying and selling easier and much more enjoyable journey for all of us. So every good wish, and once again, congratulations on getting your OBE. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Likewise, and thank you, and thanks so much for all your support as well. I can't do what I do without people like you, and I'm super grateful for all your time and help.
Thank you, and I will be seeing you soon, probably in your camper van.
Yes, definitely in the camper van.